Is there anything better than Saturday NFL football the day before a full slate of Sunday NFL games? You can feel how fired up I am. Welcome to the full Saturday NFL breakdown. If you've never been here before, welcome. My name is Max. I make these every single week for the Thursday night game, the Monday night game, all the biggest games on Sunday. And now as we get into December, guys, we got Saturday breakdowns. We're going to have a Wednesday breakdown for Christmas next week. You have to subscribe and join the family if you haven't already. I give you the best data and best information possible for your fantasy teams, as well as your higher or lower projections using statistical information about run schemes, coverage matrix, coverage data, and some overall logistical information about the matchups. If you've been here before, you like this type of stuff, make sure you actually like the video to let me know. It helps me understand the content, the types of videos you guys like more and less, and I can give you the best possible content and information possible. Before we break down either of these games, we got Houston, Kansas City, we got Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I want to make sure you guys know where to get my picks and predictions. That's the most important part of all this. There are links below for all this stuff, but on Instagram, that is where all my multi-man or multi-leg entries will be. The official Loeb's Leads parlay will be on Instagram. And truthfully, there will be a Loeb's Leads parlay just for these two games, guys. All of that stuff will be on Instagram. You have to be following on there if you haven't already. That is the number one place to be. There's a link for it below. The less research-based picks, the touchdown scores, as well as any live picks that I'm going to have, all on X. There's also a link for that. Make sure you're following if you're not already. And then if you want some bonus cash to make your picks with, Sleeper, Underdog, and Better Picks will all give you those free picks, as well as a half yard or half completion special if you join with code LEADS. The links for that are all below as well. They're going to give you 11 free entries and that half yard pick on Sleeper when you join with code LEADS. And then if you join with code LEADS on Underdog and Better Picks, Underdog is going to give you a deposit bonus up to $1,000 and a free pick. Better Picks going to match your first deposit up to $200, as well as give you a free half completion pick. But if you're not on any of the sites, you can join all three of them and get your free cash. Without further ado, let's get into this Houston-Kansas City game, guys. I'm going to take a sip of coffee for you. I'm fired up. I hope you guys can feel it. But this game, truthfully, was one of the toughest games to break down. And I said it last week with the Miami-Houston game, a really tough game to break down because the Houston Texans don't really do anything special, or I shouldn't say that. Their defense is very good. They don't do anything they do a lot of diverse things on the coverage side. They're 18th in man-to-man rate. They're 15th in zone rate. And truthfully, throughout the entire season, there aren't a ton of data outliers to look at. 11th most pass attempts given up, 7th most yards to wide receivers, but only the 20th most receptions. The last 5, though, is where I found some data outliers that I want to talk about. They're giving up 276 pass yards per game in their last 5 games. 4 of the last 5 quarterbacks they've played, and I'll pull up the data for you guys here, have had 235 passing yards or more. It's Baltimore. We'll pull up Houston right here. But they've struggled a little bit more against quarterbacks recently. Like you can see it here. Tua had 196, and he had a tough game, whatever. Mac Jones, 235, and that was after he came in for Lawrence. Levis with 278. Cooper Rush had 354 yards, guys. Jared Goff with 240, and then you look up here, some decent floors, nothing crazy, not a ton of prolific passers that they played anyways, like Jordan Love at 220, and, not bad. Rodgers 211, but not a ton of true prolific passers. And I think Patrick Mahomes, who is going to play this game, sounds like he is healthy. He is more of a prolific passer than a lot of the guys they played. Hollywood Brown also backed this game, which is really interesting because I don't know how that's going to distribute in terms of route participation, because I look at where the Kansas City Chiefs are throwing the football. It's pretty balanced in terms of out wide and in the slot, but really high in terms of inline tight end spot. Shocker, Travis Kelce. We're going to talk about that in a second. As well as they're throwing to the backfield at a decent rate. Now, last 5 games, Houston's given up 6 running back receptions per game, which is a good amount. But you look at holistically this data with Houston, and they're pretty good against tight ends. They're top 10 defensively, but top 10 defensively against tight ends holistically. Not in the last 5 weeks, guys. 7.5 tight end receptions per game, 72.5 tight end receiving yards per game, as well as 4 straight 40-plus yard games to opposing tight ends. I'll pull that up really quickly for you, too. The tight ends they've been playing, granted, Chigo Conco had 1 big catch, but 70-yard catch. You got 9 catches on Jonnu Smith's end for 48 yards, 7 catches on Evan Engram's end for 41 yards, 6 for Schoonmaker, 4 for Spanford. I don't even know who that is. And then Laporta, obviously, 3 for 66 and a touchdown. Recently, I don't know if it's been because they've changed things defensively. They really haven't dramatically, but they've really been struggling against tight ends. And when I talk about the man zone balance, usually that is where we lean in terms of, player projections, receiving yard receptions for receivers, tight ends, even running backs, whatever it may be. There's nothing there in terms of target rate. Like the Texans are being targeted out wide a bunch, so you can lean into DeAndre Hopkins if you want, but Derek Stingley's playing really good football. There's nothing in terms of that stuff that makes me feel really confident. But Travis Kelce, in terms of zone production, nobody even touches him in terms of target rate, targets, receptions, all that stuff. Man, it's really close between him, Worthy, and Hopkins. I look at that. I say, okay, so Houston's going to be balanced. Travis Kelce, who actually is the highest targeted player in terms of man coverage target rate on the Chiefs, is going to be pretty balanced with those guys, but zone, nobody touches Kelce. I look at Kelce 5.5 receptions. That's a little high, but if you want to water it down to 5+, or you want to water his yards down to 40, I might even take his yards at 50 right now, 50 straight. That is where I think you lean in that game. In terms of red zone defense and red zone offense on both these sides, really, but on the Kansas City offense versus Houston side, like you can see Houston's red zone defense, not great, 28th, so that's the 5th worst in the NFL in terms of opposing scoring percentage. But you look at Kansas City and their red zone offense, 26th. So it's like that old adage, like the unstoppable force meets an immovable object. This is a very stoppable force meeting a very movable object in the red zone. I'm not going to touch any kicker props is what I'm saying. I don't love Harrison Butker in that sense. There's no outliers in terms of field goals allowed on that side on Houston either. I'm not really going to look at Harrison Butker. And in that sense, I know we've been really, really good with kicker props. We'll wait to see how we do on Thursday night too. But really good with kicker props past couple weeks. Don't love Butker here. Don't love Fairbairn on the other side either. So looking at that Kansas City defense, guys, not a ton of data outliers until you look at the tight end spot. But once you dive deeper into the data for the tight end spot, it kind of pushes me away a little bit. Kansas City giving up the 13th most pass attempts, but their run defense is very good. Middle of the pack in terms of wide receiver yards. But second most tight end receptions, most tight end yards. Last 5 games, 6th most pass attempts allowed, 8th most pass yards allowed. Before Jameis, though, guys, and I'm going to pull this up, before the game they played last week against Jameis, this is very interesting. 8 straight 200-yard passers, 213, 340, 263, 262, 215, 200, 209, 212. And you look at some of the guys they played, guys, like Aiden O'Connell looked like a superstar against them, right? Bryce Young, this was when he started to play better, but Bryce Young. Bo Nix, who's not a wildly prolific passer. Gardner Minshew with 209. Purdy with damaged and limited weapons. And they've still allowed other games to other 200-plus yard passing games to other quarterbacks. Now, when you look at the basic passing numbers for the Houston Texans, in terms of attempts, they are top 10 in the NFL. CJ Stroud's going to have to throw the football. Now, I looked at some of the wide receiver numbers and the man coverage rate, like Nico Collins in terms of yards per route run against man, which the Chiefs play at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. They're very man heavy, is good. We talk about this threshold of 3+ yards per route run against man coverage as elite territory. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with Ladd McConkey on Thursday night. I'm recording this before the game, but Ladd McConkey, Thursday night, really big man guy. A.J. Brown's been really good to us in terms of his projections against man. Jamar Chase has been a cash cow for us, guys. Jamar Chase, really good against man. Even T. Higgins against man's pretty good. But that 3+ yard threshold, 3.15 yards per out run for Nico. In terms of target percentage, Mixon is technically second. But Tank Dell has 24 targets, and he's catching more than 50% of his targets with almost 2 yards per route run against man. I look at Tank Dell, and I'll pull up his projection for you really quick. I don't mind that. I really don't. Dell is projected 4 catches and 37 yards. Like 37 yards, that could happen on one play. Now, it's tough to find a marriage in terms of where the Chiefs are being targeted and where the Texans are throwing the football, but I'm not even going to try to lie. Like I 32nd. The Chiefs are 32nd, dead last in terms of out wide target rate, and then they're first in terms of slot target rate. Now, Dell's going to run his routes from the slot, but he's also going to run some from outside. Dalton Schultz will take some in the slot, but Dalton Schultz is like anemic against man coverage, guys. Is catching just over 50% of his targets, 1.17 yards per route run against man. Like, if they're going to man up and take Dalton Schultz one-on-one, CJ Stroud's going to throw the ball elsewhere. I don't feel super comfortable with Dalton Schultz, but his projection of 32 yards is so low. I might just take it. I think the way to go in this game, guys, truthfully, the only straight pick I feel like moderately comfortable with. I'm not even super confident in, but moderately comfortable in is CJ Stroud pass, even attempts, but passing yards just straight. But I think the way to go is like and I'll post this on Instagram, so make sure you guys are following below. Like a CJ Stroud 200 plus, Nico Collins 4 or 5 catches. On the other side, Kelsey 40 yards. Like watering down the picks in this game is the way to go. Now, Steelers Ravens, which we'll talk about in a second, there are a couple straight picks I love, but watering down the projections here in the pass game is the way to go because these are two of probably the 10 best run defenses in the NFL. They're not running the ball wildly efficient to begin with. DJ Humphries is also out for Kansas City against Houston. These are teams that are not going to run the football a ton and not going to do it super efficiently. Now, Houston has some decently explosive runs, but Kansas City's top 5 in the NFL defensively and explosive run percentage allowed. Like, there's nothing here that makes me think, okay, yep, let's look at the run game. You water down the data-backed players that the pass game likes, and you put them together. That's going to be the way we go in this game. And again, that'll be posted on Instagram and X, but mainly Instagram. So make sure you're following below. Let's move to the other game here. Steelers, Ravens. No George Pickens, guys. And that was tough because I looked at the leading receivers, and it was Pickens, I think, 12 targets, 8 catches, 89 yards. Like, Pickens was going to be the guy this game again. But here's what's crazy. You guys remember at the beginning of the year when we looked at this Baltimore Ravens defense, and you're just like, start your quarterback, start your receiver. I mean, yeah, and you were right in saying it after the Jamar Chase game. Malik Neighbors had a good game last week. He scored for the first time in like 2 months. The last 5 games, guys, they've been way better in coverage. Like, way better. They're playing more man. They're already 12th in the NFL in man coverage. But the last 5 games, they've had a 5% uptick in the amount of man they've played. Almost 40, actually more than 40% of their snaps are man coverage. They're playing better defensively in the secondary. And it's crazy. Like, I look at them and I don't love the personnel outside of Kyle Hamilton. And Marlon Humphrey's playing very well this year. I will say that. Dimitri, if you're watching, there you go. Marlon Humphrey's playing well, but this week, even though they played a little less man against Russ last time they played, with Pickens out, you don't think they're going to go man across the board and say, go beat us. They're going to stop the run. That's what they do. They are going to line up in every 3rd and medium and 3rd and long and either play cover 1 true or send 5 with the post safety with man across the board and say, come beat us. Come beat us. And truthfully, I don't think the Steelers can. But they're giving up the 2nd most pass attempts in the league and the 4th fewest rush attempts. Steelers are going to have to throw the football. You want to lean into the ground game against these Ravens. Najee wasn't wildly efficient last time they played. Sure, go ahead. Look at Najee attempts. It's an AFC North game. I get it. But here's what I really like. Last game, like I said, Pickens had 8 catches for 89 yards. Do you guys know who the next 2 leading receivers were in that game? Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Bear with me here. Jaylen Warren is on the field for more 3rd downs, generally speaking, more 3rd down routes than Najee Harris. Both of them are going to have to play a game. But he's more effective against man coverage than Najee Harris is. He's the 3rd down back. And truthfully, like, you look at some of his production in the most recent games without George Pickens. Let me pull this up. Sorry about the snort in the mic. I appreciate you guys bearing with me. But you look at some of the production, like 5 targets against Cleveland, 4 targets against Cincy, even 4 targets in that Cleveland game that Pickens played. He's had 4 of his last 5 games. He's had 4+ targets. He's had 2+ catches in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of his last 9, 11 of 12 overall. And I look at his projections, guys, 20 receiving yards is too low. And if you can get him at 2 catches, his catch projection is not on sleeper right now. If you can get him at 2 catches, guys, that is as automatic as it gets. I love Jaylen Warren through the air, especially because, and again, you can disagree with me here. I know a lot of Steelers fans do follow. I think this is a game that This truthfully, guys, this is Baltimore's game to lose. It is. They're at home. They're coming off a loss to this team. This is their game to lose. Derrick Henry has fresh legs after last week, too. It's their game to lose. That's the bottom line. I think they're going to be winning. And if they're winning, Warren's going to be on the field for more of those pass attempts. I think 20 yards is the way to go. Game flow is going to help it. I love Jaylen Warren receiving yards. On the other side, though, this is where it gets really tough. Pittsburgh has shown very simple and consistent defensive schematics. 10th most man, they're going to play cover one man. And when they play zone, it's almost all cover three. The most middle field closed in the NFL, 77% middle field closed. 77%. That is ridiculous, guys. Ridiculous. Regardless, last time they played Lamar, they played more man. They loaded the box. They said, 77% was against Lamar, but they're still playing the most middle field closed in the NFL. They loaded the box and they said, Derrick Henry's not going to beat us. Lamar, you go beat us. And it worked. It did. I think it's going to be a very similar game plan this time around. Let's go look at what happened the last time these guys played. Actually, before we do, let me ask you guys, do you remember who the leading receiver was on the Ravens? It was not even a wide receiver. Do you remember who it was? I'll give you guys a second to think. You can comment it if you want, but I'm going to pull it up. Look at this. The leading receiver was Isaiah Likely, 4 for 75. Isaiah Likely. But, and here's where this gets nasty, guys. Here's where this gets nasty. Do you know who had the most targets on the Ravens in that game? Again, not a wide receiver. Not a wide receiver. Zay had, I think, 6. Bateman had 5, I believe. Andrews had 5. Likely had 5 or around there. Justice Hill had 7 targets. Every time we pick Justice Hill for something this year, it has smacked. But it is not just looking at last game, guys. Like I said, Pittsburgh is almost exclusively cover 3 when they play zone. They do some other stuff, but mainly cover 3 when they play zone. They're going to play a lot of man. We talked about that, 10th most man in the league. But Justice Hill is still averaging 1.53 yards per route run against man coverage, catching 87% of his targets against man coverage. It's a lot of screens, so it makes sense. But he has produced at a ridiculous level against top half or cover 3 teams. Anytime. Actually, no, I'm just going to show you the game logs. I don't even need to read you the numbers. I'm going to show you the friggin' game logs. Look at this. Anytime. Oh, I just closed out. That's awkward. Whatever. I'm fired up about this. I love picking Justice Hill, and this is the week to do it. Justice Hill, anytime he has played heavy cover 3 teams, let's just walk through it. So last time he played Pittsburgh, right? 4 catches, 28 yards. Other heavy cover 3 teams. Cleveland, unfortunately, is a heavy cover 3 team, but they play a little more man than everybody else is used to. Derrick Henry was a big part of this game, but he still had 14 yards. Like, remember that. He still had 14 yards. Against Dallas. Where's the Dallas game? 2 for 21. So 21 yards. Not bad, right? Here's where it gets crazy, though. That Giants game. 5 for 61 on a touchdown. Yeah. Giants are a heavy cover 3 team. But the best game, guys, right here. 6 for 78 against the Bills. Against heavy cover 3 teams, Justice Hill is the guy in the pass game. If I read you those numbers, I just showed you the game logs, what would you think his yards projection is? He had 28, 61, 21, 78, and 14. Look at 4 of those 5 games and more than 20 yards. Maybe you look at the holistic data from the entire season and you think just a little bit less, like 18. Guys, Justice Hill's yards projection right now. And he's projected 3 catches. I don't know if the volume's going to be there. His yards projection. Wow, it went up 3 yards since I checked last time. It's 19 yards. That is disgustingly low. He might have 40. His averages, 40.4 receiving yards against defenses like the Pittsburgh Steelers. 40.4. He had 20 last time they played, or more than 20 last time they played. I hate it so much, but the way you lean in this game, these types of games, running back, receiving. I don't mind Isaiah Likely. Truthfully, I don't. Isaiah Likely's projection right now is at 30-something last time I checked. Let's see. Pull this up. 25. Like, that to me is a little too low. It could happen on 1 catch. But the way you lean here, it's, if you want to go straight, it's Warren receiving and it's Justice Hill receiving. But the other things you do here, field goals. Like Justin Tucker kicking at home, he'll have 2+ field goals. Chris Boswell probably going to Steelers are going to score. It's going to be field goals. I'd feel more comfortable about Tucker, though, because you can look at the red zone defense numbers for Pittsburgh. We'll pull this up really quick. Red zone defense numbers for Pittsburgh, just above average in terms of red zone offense, though. Maybe we lean away. Where are we at here? Baltimore. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we lean away from Justin Tucker. But again, it's the AFC North. And It's tough, hard-nosed football. Field goals are generally the way I lean in these games. But my most confident picks here are Justice Hill receiving. I think that's my favorite. And Jaylen Warren. That is the way you lean in that game. So we like those. And the other game, we watered down the numbers or the pass catchers, the numbers like the most. So Kelsey, Stroud, Nico Collins. I don't even mind Mahomes in terms of attempts because they're not going to be able to run the football. That is where we go in both those games. That is what we have for these Saturday breakdowns. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like. There will be a full Sunday breakdown coming out, depending on when you're seeing this, Saturday afternoon, right around when these games actually kick off. But that data, that information will be out for you guys as soon as it's ready Saturday. God bless you guys. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.